collaboration with the Cyprus Mail, this is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Charalambous.
Coming up on the programme this week, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development is committed to financing the green economy.
When you are asking about environmental issues, we have very clear environmental mandate. We call it Green Economy Transition, which is a commitment by our shareholders to finance projects which are driving a green agenda.
Innovative greenhouse technology can make great savings in both fuel and water.
More than 30 to 40% less fuel consumption. We have up to 90% less water consumption.
The Health Minister is encouraging the private sector to invest in research and development in the health sector.
First of all, it's better for the patient, but also it reduces the overall cost to the health system in general.
And the Goethe Institute is hosting a series of events to mark the centenary of Bauhaus.
In a way, we are proud of Bauhaus in Germany, and we think it's a good export.
The Bauhaus was developed for a society of industrial mechanical production. Today, we are in a digital world.
Whenever you want to do something positive for the environment or indeed for communities anywhere, you need money. Well, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development do just that. They have, of course, their criteria. Joining us on the programme this week is Dr. Darius Prasek, who's from the Environment and Sustainability Department at the EBRD. Darius, first tell us a little bit about the sort of projects that the EBRD promotes and supports.
EBRD is one of regional development banks. We have been created to promote transition from centrally planned to market economy in a number of countries, but our transition criteria have changed over the time. We took more countries of operations. Among those is also Cyprus and Greece. But when you are asking about environmental issues, we have very clear environmental mandate. We call it Green Economy Transition, which is a commitment by our shareholders to finance projects which are driving a green agenda. And the commitment is that at least 40% of our financing by 2020 will be channeled to projects which support green economy.
And how do you go about assessing the impact that the projects that apply to you will have long-term on their environment?
Maybe I should have mentioned that we have very stringent standards. First of all, irrespective wherever we finance the project has to meet European Union standards. Sometimes it is a challenge if you are talking about projects in Central Asia, in Northern Africa. Sometimes these countries are not contemplating joining European Union. We still have to structure projects to meet these standards. So we are driven by the international best practice in terms of structuring projects. Every project goes through very stringent environmental and social assessment. And the projects are structured to meet, as I mentioned, all these standards. If they don't meet them at the very beginning, we use a construct which is called Environmental Social Action Plan. These are commitments by our clients which need to be implemented. These commitments are enshrined in the legal agreements governing operations, and clients are obliged to implement these measures to actually comply with the best international practice, and we monitor the implementation of these measures. So this is indirect answer to your question, how we ensure that these projects are sustainable, that they actually bring measurable benefits.
And I think I'm right in saying that you're one of the monitors, and so you presumably travel around checking up on the progress of some of these projects. How easy is that in countries where transparency is not high on the agenda?
I'm not going to pretend that this is easy. This is challenging, but life consists of many challenges. Yes, I'm one of those. I run a group. I'm director of operations in the Environment and Sustainability Department, and I have about 45 specialists, highly skilled in various walks of life in terms of environment, social skills, and of course, we monitor these projects. We also use external consultants, independent consultants. It is a challenge, as you say. Sometimes transparency is not there, but that's why we are skilled. We are trying, to get deeply into the project to actually ensure that we have the proper data, that no one is going, to give us sort of smoke screen that, everything is fine. We are trying to actually check whether their commitments are fulfilled.
What happens if you do discover that a project is perhaps, siphoning off some of the funding where it shouldn't be going? Do you just cut the strings, or do you work with them to bring them back on track?
To be honest, it doesn't happen often, but it happened that sometimes, clients were utilizing funds incorrectly, or they were late with implementation of the agreed measures. First of all, we try to reason with the client and put them on track. But of course, occasionally we can use nuclear option, which will be calling off the loan, asking to repay it.
Now, you mentioned earlier on the shareholders in the bank. Mm-hmm. So where does the funding actually come from?
Well, we have many shareholders. These are countries, these are supranational bodies like European Union or European Investment Bank. We have our establishing capital, which has been increased twice during the lifetime of the bank. But we finance projects which are commercially viable, are bankable. That means,
You'll get a return.
We get a return. And this return allows us to finance more projects.
Do you have personal favourite projects that at the moment you think we should be putting at the top of the list?
I am by background an environmental engineer, and all projects which actually push the environmental agenda are very close to my heart. We are talking at this conference about circular economy. Circular economy, it is something before joining the bank. I worked for United Nations, and I worked also as an academic teacher. And about 30 years ago, I was actually teaching students about circular economy. So now, when we are actually raising financing, we are putting this on the powerful agenda of the European Union. I'm very pleased. These projects are close to my heart.
And the circular economy is almost a buzzword these days, and particularly among youth, who are very much at the forefront of European funding generally. How do they fit into the picture? Because they're coming up with fantastic ideas, aren't they?
And they should be coming up with fantastic ideas. We, for too long, we have been a very wasteful society. We have been throwing away things which can be utilized, reused, as raw materials or by even products, by someone else. I'll give you an example. We were promoting transition to market economy over the years. Accumulation of waste per capita in Central European countries 25 years ago was about 1.5 cubic meters per capita per year. Now it's 7. So it shows that the whole transition to market economy had certain consequences that actually increased amount of waste. They are piling up, they need to be disposed of. We have to think differently. We have to think how to reuse these waste, how to minimize the waste.
And whether we can live without the things we're buying in the first place.
Exactly.
So this is all really market-driven by big commercial concerns. What do they make of it? Because their sales surely are going to drop, therefore their profits are going to drop, so they must be also needing to come up with new ideas.
They have to, but every concern could be turned into an opportunity. And the companies who will notice the opportunity, will seize these opportunities, they will win. And that's why they have to start thinking differently and turn the potential concern, potential threat into an opportunity.
Now, I think I'm right in saying that the EU has just passed laws that say everything we buy needs to come with a repair manual. It needs to be supported by spare parts. So we're going back a little bit to maybe the make, do and mend idea of the 30s and 40s. That's going to have a huge impact too. What's your advice to companies, particularly small and medium enterprises, who have joined the commercial bandwagon and maybe don't have the facilities to do some of that?
Sometimes we don't need to think about facilities, tools, equipment. Sometimes it's a change in our thinking. And as I said before, try to think about opportunities. Many small companies actually are at the forefront of utilizing materials or thinking about designs which at the stage of designing already think about consequences of the end of the product and how to utilize the components, what to do with them, or to prolong the life. Look at the recent refrigerators or washing machines. I mean, they last on average 5 to 8 years.
They used to last 50.
They used to last 50. I mean, so we probably went wrong, and probably it's not too late to actually turn the wave and go the other way.
And that's what the EBRD is trying to do, I guess.
This is what we are trying to help to do with financing projects.
That is Dr. Darius Prasek, the Environment and Sustainability Department of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development.
Get in touch with the Cyprus News Digest by emailing cyprusnewsdigest@gmail.com.
My next guest is Professor Alex Papachagis, who's from the University of Thessaly in Greece. He's an expert on efficiency in the greenhouse sector. So that's important for any country that does a lot of agriculture, Cyprus among them. What new technologies are coming on stream, as it were, to make them presumably more efficient?
I'm going to speak about innovative greenhouses that can save energy and water consumption. According to the climate change, we have to adapt our agricultural production, and especially the greenhouse production that is easier to the climate change. And we can achieve all of this with less water consumption and with less fuels, fossil fuels. The innovation to these greenhouses is that we use geothermal energy. This is the point.
In our part of the Mediterranean, could we not also use solar power if we wanted to keep greenhouses warm in winter, for example? It's not a problem we have as much as Northern Europe, but I presume there are times of the year when you need to maintain a temperature that, or even perhaps cooling in the summer.
Yeah, this is correct, that around the Mediterranean countries, cooling is more important than heating the greenhouses. And maybe we spend more energy for cooling than for heating. But besides this, heating also needs a lot of fossil fuels. And we can replace those fossil fuels with geothermal energy.
So how does that work?
We exploit the deposited energy to the groundwater or to the sea water or to the lake water or to the rivers, even to the ground, to the soil. And with special geothermal pumps, we can take this energy. For example, by spending 1 kilowatt of energy, we can gain about 5 kilowatts of heating with such kind of geothermal pumps.
How far is this technology being used at the moment, and how quickly can you change farmers' minds sometimes? Because a lot of farmers in the rural areas, I presume, are people who've been doing this all their lives and perhaps not open to these new ideas.
This is true. Is one of the disadvantages of this new innovative technology. We have to change their way of thinking, not only of the farmers, even from the officials, but step by step we can achieve all of this, and mainly with the results that we have. Less consumption, water consumption, better production with all of this. And the figures that we achieved are tremendous.
So presumably people who can see that it's financially advantageous to them are going to adapt and adopt this sort of thing.
Yeah, this is true. On one hand, we have a disadvantage, the high cost of this technology. On the other hand, we have as a result, let's say, more than 30 to 40% less fuel consumption. We have up to 90% less water consumption.
So what's the payback time? If a farmer invests in this technology, how long before they recoup their investment?
The truth is that we can apply alternative solutions with this technology, cheaper solutions, I mean, and probably in 5 years we can pay back this investment. And if it is following by government subsidy, it's easier.
And is the government taking that on board and subsidising?
I presume that they have to subsidize this, as most of the innovative agricultural projects they are doing.
And that is Professor Alex Papachadzis from the University of Thessaly talking about innovative geothermal technology for energy and water use efficiency in the greenhouse sector.
In collaboration with the Cyprus Mail, this is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Charalambous.
At the recent press conference detailing exciting new research at the Cyprus Institute of Neurology and Genetics, the Health Minister, Konstantinos Ioannou, was present, and as he was leaving I managed to grab him and ask him how important it was for the Health Ministry, for private enterprises like the RCB Bank that sponsored that research, to be involved in helping the health industry and particularly research and innovation.
As you know, first of all, as a Ministry of Health, we actively support the Institute of Neurology, and research programs like the one presented today are extremely important for us because it gives this next generation sequencing, it gives us a chance to give a better prognosis for various diseases. And as you know, the earlier you identify disease, first of all, it's better for the patient, but also it reduces the overall cost to the health system in general. So overall, research projects like this, with the help of RCB, which without their funding wouldn't have been possible, are extremely important, and it improves the standing of the research center overall in the world, which in any case, it's a well-respected institute throughout the world.
You're a businessman yourself, so are you in a position to try and encourage more input from private sector institutions into research and the Ministry of Health, particularly, of course, with the National Health Service?
Obviously, but we always encourage, without the help of private institutions, like it happens in the rest of the world, and non-profit institutions overall, our task, our work wouldn't have been possible.
But do they see the value of doing that?
As time passes, they do. Yeah, we see more and more examples like RCB coming through. So, yes, it takes some time for people to realize that. But as part of their overall social and corporate responsibility, I guess we'll see more initiatives like this, and I hope we'll see more initiatives like this in the near future.
Cyprus Minister of Health, Konstantinos Ioannou.
Keep up to date with events in Cyprus and around the world with the Cyprus News Digest.
Last week at the Goethe Institute in Nicosia's buffer zone, an event that's going to run until the 19th of April was opened. It's a Bauhaus open house, and to tell us all about the various events that are coming up, we're joined by the director of the Goethe Institute in Cyprus, Karin Varga. Karin, tell us the idea behind this. I know it's the centenary of Bauhaus, but
Exactly, yeah.
You've got a lot of different events coming up that encompass, I think, all aspects.
Yes, indeed. We have the anniversary of the Bauhaus, and worldwide the Goethe Institutes are doing events and series of events. And we also in Cyprus wanted to celebrate it a little bit more than the usual anniversaries we do, because we think, in a way, we are proud of Bauhaus in Germany, and we think it's a good export. We had this 100 years ago. And I personally love the Bauhaus, the style and the area. So we decided to do a conference, 2 exhibitions, some film screenings. One is very, very interesting. We had last week on Thursday. The name was Bauhaus, Modell und Mythos, Model and Myth. Very, very critical, and for this it was so interesting. And also we will have a dance evening at the dance house Nicosia.
Dance evening. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? A lot of people don't associate dance particularly with Bauhaus. What's the connection?
The connection is the Triadisches Ballett by Oskar Schlemmer. This was a ballet with costumes, and the costumes were geometrical forms. So it was a very new form of ballet. Oskar Schlemmer invited there and brought to stage. So Arianna Economo will have a homage on this ballet. And yes, we will see what she will give us this evening to see.
So it is, as we said, a varied programme. It runs until the 19th of April. I presume that online, on your website or somewhere, people can see the full programme and choose what they can attend.
Right. We have a project website with all the events, the 2 exhibitions open daily in the week, not on Saturday and Sunday, but from Monday to Friday. Also at 6 o'clock we have a film about the Bauhaus project, Bauhaus Imaginista, which was a special project by the Haus der Kultur und der Welt in Berlin and the Goethe Institute and the Bauhaus Kooperative. I think there are a lot of things, and the conference as well.
So the details are available where? What's the website?
The website is our website, goethe.de/Cyprus. It's goethe.de/Cyprus.
And that is the director of the Goethe Institute in Cyprus, Karin Varga, talking about that Bauhaus open house with something for everyone. Well, as my last guest just mentioned, that conference on Bauhaus took place on Wednesday. The keynote speaker was a veritable expert on the genre, Professor Dr. Magdalena Drost, who is the former co-director of the Bauhaus Archive in Berlin. She joins us now. Magdalena, how can you sum up Bauhaus for people who don't know much about it?
So, in the beginning, in its first 14 years, from 1919 to 1933, the Bauhaus was a school. Today, Bauhaus is used as a label for every modernism, which in the end is not really correct.
So it was exported, however, not just across the world, but to many different genres. We heard earlier about geometric costumes in the ballet, and I know that in visual arts there was a lot of influence, but most people do associate it with architecture. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. I think this is one of the misconceptions or simplifications, yeah? I think it was as influential in design, and it was sometimes so radical new that we still have a big pleasure in seeing the things again, yeah? Some things one cannot go on with some things, like the Triadic Ballet of Oskar Schlemmer.
So, if I understood correctly from the things I saw in the exhibition, the whole idea behind it was to merge art with, if you like, did we call it technology back in the early 20th century? I don't know, but it was design as well as craftsmanship.
Yeah, this was the first idea, but I think some ideas which are as important were to do it in a small community. And to me, an important third idea is to do it with ethical responsibility.
Now let's come to that, because I did pick up in the exhibition one of the little cards that are in there. I loved it. This was said by Walter Gropius, who I think was the founder of Bauhaus. So we're talking in 1919, and he said, "The sickness of our cities and communities nowadays is the sad result of our failure to prioritise basic human needs over economic and industrial demands." That could be something that anybody might say today in 2019.
Yeah, you are right. Anybody could say this in 2019. So you could say the Bauhaus has had no influence.
Oh, well, dear me, I don't think that's very fair, but he was obviously a man well ahead of his time, and he foresaw the problems that we were making for humankind.
Yeah, but even Walter Gropius lived in a capitalistic society, and these economical conditions go on, and it's a question, how do they influence our city world, our world, and what can we do as little subjects?
So basically you say that his message didn't get through, but we're asking the same things these days. And can you sum up for me how you think Bauhaus has progressed over the last 100 years, and is it still an influence that can be put to work to make the societies we live in better?
I'm sorry, I think we cannot find any help in the Bauhaus. The Bauhaus was creative and of great influence because the society was behind the technological development. Today, our society is no longer behind technological development. The Bauhaus was developed for a society of industrial, mechanical production. Today, we are in a digital world. I think the only thing we could learn from the Bauhaus is that there should be more ethical responsibility in creating. But this message can no longer be the message of a simple school. It should be everywhere. I don't know.
So it's something that we should all, in a sense, internalise. But if you talk about a digital society, surely there are essences of Bauhaus that can be extrapolated into the way we work in the modern world.
Yeah, everybody wants to know that. But I have not really an answer to that, yeah? So let's give me an example. At the Bauhaus, creativity was very important, but it was part of that what I call the ethical responsibility. Today, everybody has to be creative, and it becomes immediately part of our economical world.
It's rather depressing in a way, I think, Magdalena, that you think we can't go forward somehow with positivity. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. I don't want to end in a pessimistic outlook. but there are younger people who have to give the answers.
That is Professor Dr. Magdalena Droste, who was co-director of the Bauhaus archive in Berlin, the keynote speaker at that conference on Bauhaus, which took place earlier this week at the Goethe Institute in Cyprus. Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.